Hey guys, what's up, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? And this is not going to be aired on Twitch, so I'm not doing a live stream as we speak right now. Like I said, if you guys are interested in the live stream Twitches, make sure you follow me on Twitter at 8digit Studios, and I'll usually post when I'm about to do my live streams for Photoshop, After Effects, tutorials, and whatnot. So today, we're just going to go over something a little more simple, just kind of basically learning the ins and outs of Photoshop. Now I know a lot of people are always questioning, like, how do I get into Photoshop? How do I get into the world of GFX? And I'm gonna let you know right now that and this is a part, and I guess this is technically a part of the tutorial that we'll be going into, and I'll be creating a lot of more tutorials, but you really have to learn Adobe in itself, and you have to learn what the practicalities are for each of the individual programs. So a lot of people will see Photoshop as a major point. It is one of the most recognizable, it is one of the most recognizable programs on the market right now for graphic design, but that's not what its intention is for. If you're coming into the world of GFX in order to do it professionally with major printing companies or something like that, you're not going to be using Photoshop, I can tell you that. You're going to be using programs like Adobe InDesign and Adobe Illustrator. Now, why is that? Why are you going to be using Adobe InDesign and Adobe Illustrator more than any other program? Well, that's because they are different systems. And what I mean by that is, yes, they're in the Adobe family, but what their different systems means is Adobe Illustrator, for instance, is a vector. Okay, it's a vector system, so which basically means it's saving the colored data. It's not saving into pixels. It's not saying, okay, so I have a pixel here, here, and here, and the little squares that you put together to get an image. Now, you can, in many ways, alter it so you can use Photoshop to create vector images, but it'll never turn out to be the way you can do something in Adobe Illustrator. And that's why when you create something in Adobe Illustrator, it's going to become extremely crisp. And you're going to notice the edges are extremely defined, whereas Photoshop, if you're saving it as like the default 72 DPI and you're doing 1920 by 1080, you might see some fuzziness around the corners and edges, which makes it not the ideal programs if you're going to be working at a magazine magazine company, or a newspaper company, or anything that has to deal with print. Print is always going to use the highest quality available, because when you import it into your printer, you don't want to see little fuzzies running around and little pixels running around on your image. Now, that leaves the question, what is Photoshop? Then, if Photoshop is not a vector, then what is Photoshop? Now, Photoshop is what we like to call a bitmap system. Now, the bitmap system is a little interesting because as crisp and clear as you can get it, it's always going to be little pixels here and there that will define it as an image. So, you know, why would people use Adobe Photoshop over Adobe Illustrator? Well, because when you save an image as a vector, it's going to be a really, really big file. And sometimes there are some compression issues where you can't really save it into formats, and if you can save it into certain formats that you need for web, then it will be a really big file. So it's easier just to use Photoshop because it uses a bitmap system, which is a lower resolution system that doesn't save that much data, but it'll create just as high as quality of an image. So we technically, and most of the time, would use Photoshop for creating images on web. So for things like Twitter, for things like Facebook, YouTube, for your custom websites, or even your computer screen, because a computer screen does use pixels. So you know, you have this 1920 by 1080 pixel screen here at 60 hertz, and you know, God knows how many DPI. I haven't checked the DPI on my screen, but that's why we would use it. You know, the differences between these two programs, and why I use Photoshop more than anything is because I started out on Photoshop. And I understand all of the platforms. It's just I'm most comfortable with Photoshop. So that's why you'll see me using Photoshop most of the time. And that's why Photoshop is preferred by most people, because it's more simple. It's extremely simple. If you give a monkey it 10 minutes later, he'll be like, oh, look at, I Photoshopped Kate Upton, now she's beautiful. So, and that was the other point that I wanted to get to. Photoshop is also photos. It was originally intended for altering photos, but it turned out to be a lot more than that. Now that begs the question, what version of Photoshop or Illustrator or After Effects or Premiere should I get? And if you have a buttload of money laying around, I would say you could go out and pay the full, $1,600 for Adobe Master Collection CC, or only a few $100s for Photoshop and Illustrator separately on CS6. You see me opening up my programs here. But if you are 99%, or if you are in the 99 percentile where the most of us cannot afford that $1,600, including myself, you can go with Adobe CC. Now, Adobe CC released this in the late 2013s, which is a monthly subscription-based Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere, After Effects, and it was basically intended because Adobe knew that people couldn't afford their programs. That was the biggest, I'm not paying $800 for Photoshop, you nuts? That was the biggest issue that people were having with these programs. So, as I said, I would definitely check out Adobe CC because I believe they are at 14.2 right now, and these programs are outstanding. These programs are the real programs. It's not a cutback system. It's not like, okay, since you can't afford the $1,600 for the entire collection, we're gonna, make it a light version and you can only use certain things here and here. They didn't do that, and what I really admire Adobe for actually taking the time to create this type of system for people like me who are students or people who are new to the industry who don't want or who cannot afford the major systems. Now, and I understand, I was going to go into a lot more, but this video has really turned out to be kind of like the differences in Adobe image creation, and I'll have another video posted for why Adobe After Effects and Adobe Premiere, because those are the main programs that I use on a daily basis, which is Adobe After Effects, Premiere, Photoshop, and Illustrator. Those are programs that I use like on a daily basis. So I will keep you guys out, keep your eyes out for another video coming out soon for the differences between Photoshop and differences between Adobe After Effects and Adobe Premiere. Anyways, guys, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys have any questions, leave your comments down below the like button, and I'll talk to you guys later.